Shit. Okay. Greetings, everyone. Apologies for being late. I am sorry about that. Before we begin, let me give prayer to the ancestors and to thank them for our being here. It is because of them that we are here, and I beseech them for us to have a good conversation, to be enlightened, and to learn and to teach, and especially today to give for patience. Patience is needed sometimes, especially when one is short of it and of time. So thank you all for being here. Who is here? Oh, yes. Before we begin, thank you so much. Greetings, Mani, Kokou from the Medicine Podcast. And I see, yes, I have been preceded by Oni is also here from the Pro. Yes, we really do. And I am also sorry that we're not going to have the program that I wanted to have today. And the reason for that is just, it will sound like loads and loads of excuses, which it definitely is not. But I have been fighting and struggling and, just, I don't know what happened to my computer. Everything just is not working. It just says the browser has blocked your mic and camera. I went and tried to change all the settings. None of them worked. It was just, just crazy. Things that are supposed to be always working. And, for some reason, they didn't. And speaking of things working, can we say if, can you hear me? Am I live? Is this thing working? So if you can, please just put a one in the chat so I know that this thing is working and I don't need to restart this whole nonsense over again. I am frustrated beyond measure. I am annoyed at technology, which things are supposed to work and they don't. I don't know how egregious one feels, but it is just the most annoying thing. Oh, you can't hear you? Oh, you cannot hear. Are you serious? You cannot hear me right now. Oh, wow. You can't hear me. You know what? This is absolutely terrible. Terrible. I think I may have, angered the gods of technology. Oh, you okay? Only you are such, oh my goodness, I don't know what names to call you right now. You're lucky. I'm a good person. I was brought up well and I have restraint because, oh my goodness, I was about to just throw in the towel and call this thing quits and just go, yeah. I have been fighting with this thing since, let's say, 40 minutes ago. And I was trying everything last minute, trying to change the settings on the browser, on the computer, on this and that, and saying, oh my goodness, this thing always worked. I had everything prepared. I have the PowerPoint and the information. It was going to be wonderful and great. I was just hubristic, that means I was prideful. And so, as usual, pride led to a fall. Okay, fine. You win that one, on the prank wars, I suppose. But the other reason why I was genuinely asking is because it says that nobody is watching, like a big zero egg right there. So it sounds as if I'm talking to myself when there's no one watching. But yeah, so that's the story right there. I had okay, there's one person. Good. Okay, at least I can have a conversation and not a soliloquy. I did. No, it's gone again. Okay, I do not know what's happening. I have no idea. Today I am completely clueless. So maybe the best thing is to just. But I know that if I don't always just start talking to myself for long periods, none of you will volunteer to help out a sister by jumping on the panel. I just give a brief overview because I don't have all my presentation materials. I had a different program device I was using and that didn't work. So now I'm on a, it's terrible. It's terrible. I know it sounds like, somebody who showed up to the day of the presentation totally unprepared. But in any case, I don't know if I should introduce it or just leave it until next week and do it properly. I don't like to do a half-assed job. I don't like to, you know. Well, the program was going to be, the first introduction was going to be the song Iron by Iron Maiden. It's called Fear of the Dark, and I had the lyrics. I had, you know. Okay, well, you all tell me what you want to do. Sometimes if things don't work out properly, we can always reschedule. So do you want us to continue with this or do you want us to reschedule? Which I hate to do, but I may have to. Hmm? So we can either just have a general conversation about the whole aspect of fear, because that's what I was going to talk about today. It was about the fear both of, people who fear us and us who fear them or who fear something in ourselves. So when you talk about fear, there was this clip, crack.com, where they were analyzing the movies in Britain versus in America. And they're talking about in Britain, much of the movies, the horror movies that are usually set in the towns and cities, in Jack the Ripper style, sort of things, or the mystery with Sherlock Holmes or Agatha Christie and Ruth Randall and so on. So it was usually at this commercial or town settings. But in American movies, when the horror movies are usually set mostly in the woods, in the forests, in nature and so on. So he was theorizing, or that was the argument, that people put their fears, the fear of the environment is where people are most uncertain of. So in the London towns in Britain, the places where people felt most afraid was in the cities, because that's where you had the criminals and the poor people and all manner of unsavory individuals that started from Charles Dickens and his stories of pickpockets and the underground of London society. Not just, so it was supposed to be this, on the surface of it, it created all these wonderful works of literature and went forth and colonized the world. But in the back end, there was all this filth and drudgery and corruption and misery. So that was the great fear of the British, for example. And for the Americans, to them, nature had been something that they had to conquer. They had to almost tame it, to get to the new land. And so for them, it was the outside that was, they had safety in towns, actually. So for them, when they built towns and cities, it was more of a fortified community where it gave them protection rather than, created fear. So yeah, so that was the basis of their fear, that fear of their known, fear of other human beings, like in the cities, where what you feared was somebody, in a dark alley doing something to you, attacking you or robbing you and so on. And then, you had the fear for, in American horror movies, fear of nature being out there, and, either animals or, mysterious forces getting at you. And that is, oh, continue? Okay. Then we shall continue for, yes, it will be a brief one then. Will be brief. So we'll be back next week. I promise I will have everything sorted out by then. So the fear of the unknown, and that includes, the fear of the dark. People or children, when they reach a certain age, and not just, well, people get over it. Nobody's afraid of the dark anymore, not to that extent, but a lot of children pass through the stage where we're talking, habari bwana Haguziki. So I'm not afraid to say your name, like all the rest of the people who start bwana it's so simple. I think maybe we should do it in small steps. The bwana part is simple. So Haguziki, habari sana. So today, and I already made my apologies. Oh, Jose is here. Hey, Jose, good to have you in the house. Okay, so I already made my apologies, but I guess I'll have to do it again and again because so I had a technological failure. This is what happened. I had a good program in mind. I had all my ducks in a row, as they said. Oh man, it was going to be wonderful and great. And then I tried to go online, and what does it say? Oh, Mike, and camera access. Your browser has blocked. So I go back, settings, go back and forth, look at up and down, try different things. None of those things worked. None of them. Like eventually I just said, okay, you know what? I'm just going to go online and make my apologies and say, I'm sorry, things happen. And so that was what it was. But the original topic was the topic of the topic of fear. So briefly, we were contrasting. There was a thesis that somebody had put forth about the fear portrayed in horror movies in American versus British, and the British had the fear of the cities and so on because of the fear of each other, of a fellow human being, attacking you in a dark alley, whereas in America, the cities were a place of refuge, and so for them the fear was fear of the forests and nature and of being out there and so on. So that was a contrast of the fear. So okay, everybody is coming in. Good. Okay, I hope you do catch up, but apologies have been made. So just to let you know, next week is going to be the proper, title for this program. I do not have my materials at hand, but I will give you a brief overview of it, and then we'll have everything next week. So the aspect of fear. Fear is something that guides, a lot of people. Where when people, they fear us even though they don't have a reason to. And so the other aspect of it was this whole idea of superstition. And when people talk about superstition, they usually associate it with primitive society, and we know who is the most primitive of them all, as Africans. So they say, they associate it with the primitive societies, the people who worship, the Ooga Boogas, or, the nature-based and so on, and gather down a tree, that sort of thing. So, and superstition if I had my time, I won't complain. Superstition is basically the belief in, the irrational, something without a cause. Oh, greetings, Gasdemup.
Yes, it's your favorite primitive Nigerian.
Yes, how are you, primitive Nigerian?
Man, I got some monkey bones in my ear. I just finished grinding my teeth on some stone. I am literally walking naked right now, allowing the sun to hit my testicles. What about you?
I am holed up in four walls in an air conditioned place with fans and all manner of technology.
What
Yes.
voodoo do you speak of? I've never heard of such voodoo.
It is the control of the environment.
How do they achieve this? Which god is this?
It is the god of technology that allows you to live comfortably and coolly in the desert.
Interesting, interesting. What sacrifices does he require or she require?
For you to spend hours and hours of tedium doing nothing, being in four walls free since childhood till retirement. Yeah.
Sounds like a coffin. I don't think I want that.
If only we had a choice. So, yes,
So your gods don't give you a choice.
well, you don't get a choice, but you enjoy the results.
Sounds like what a rapist says to a sex victim.
Oh, geez. Yeah, of course, you had to go there. No, it's this. Some people might not know what is good for them because they lack the imagination. They don't know the possibilities. So somebody else will come and show them that, look, you might not understand why the nerds are putting up wires under the ground and doing all this nonsense in front of a screen for hours, but it will be good for you because you will get your pornography.
Is this why
and your
the ancient Japanese were digging up those telephone lines because they said it was ghosts and voodoo?
Yes, the Japanese are, and people don't know this, but the Japanese are very, very superstitious. The Bank of Japan is actually, they have an account for this mysterious, this god who the god of the money, and they believe that if they don't, serve him in a way that they are not going to be successful. And behind a lot of even their cars and their branding, they do have the old Shinto religions and meanings behind them. So even the most seemingly straight-laced and logical people still carry that whole superstitious bent behind them. And that's what superstition is, the fear of the unknown. And and Cambridge describes it as belief in magic or the supernatural without scientific or logical reasons for it. So it's an irrational belief. And yet, for some reason, humans still carry that in a way, even the most logical seeming.
So these gods just want me to stay in this four walls and basically enter into what you describe as a coffin, and then I can get air conditioning and take control of nature.
Well, yes, it's better than roaming, wild, being burnt by the sun, and not having, any sort of comfort where you're exposed to nature and all that. Nobody's doing that anymore. It is to make life comfortable, and that at least they have achieved.
And there's no price to pay for this.
Well, there is a price to be paid, but the price is totally worth it because the people who are in those places, your so-called coffins, they seem very comfortable, and everybody seems to want to, to be in their place. Everybody is, even the people who seem supposedly content, they still want to be in those places. Everybody wants. The road used to lead to Rome, now it's coming straight to America. It diverges to the UK from time to time, but everybody knows what's up. So once you taste that comfort, once you see that possibility, you are willing to pay both the personal price for it and the communal price for it, even if it means, let's say, sending one of your own to go enjoy it while the rest of you lock on and, live vicariously.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I like that arrangement. I'm not sure. Doesn't sound interesting.
Well, it is the best arrangement so far. It makes people comfortable. It makes people, like in that, what was that movie? Wall-E? Yeah, what is the ultimate need or want or desire of most people is simply to be comfortable, is to have the basics, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. When you have all of those, then you live in
Is
a
that a
society.
universalization? Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Yes.
Because, for example, right, like why is it that his so-called hierarchy of needs, you know, could it be applied to primitive societies? Like, what would a primitive chief, or what would I don't know, someone on the where Genghis Khan is from, what would they say to Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Well, for them, they still have the same ones. It's just they practice them differently. For example, the need for meaning. For them, maybe it was not so much in philosophy as in, religion or rituals or superstition, as one would say, or the need for society. They already had that in their army, in their communities. So that need is already met. It's just, it expresses itself in different ways. So I would say, yeah, the need is universal. I mean, at the basis of everything.
So this universalism is very, very Newtonian. It's what
Say that
quite
again.
Pan-African of you. I said these Newtonian things are very, these universal things are very Newtonian. It allows for the existence of mass, right? Mass scale, massive, blah, 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 right? Very Pan-African, very feminist.
Do you know what Haguziki said? Here we go. Gas take us to the forest again. And let me tell you what is interesting. Earlier I said that the American version of horror is nature, is the forest. It's not my theory, it's somebody else's, but they were saying that the American version of horror is forest, nature, trees, and so on, whereas the British is mostly the city and the people in the city and the danger. But in America, the city is supposed to be a safe place, and the forest is supposed to be, a place of fear. But yeah, here you are taking us back to the forest again. Well, back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's you have your basic needs, your safety needs, and those were taken care of in a so-called primitive society. It was taken care of by the communal aspect of it. People had the safety, and everyone was taken care of. The social need, esteem. That was that's
Was
also unique.
everyone taken care of? I mean, were there welfare programs in primitive societies?
Yes, there were. Those was part of the social, the
State
social,
sanctioned welfare programs?
not state sanctioned. They don't have to be state sanctioned. They just have to be needs that are met. The difference is that
But who is
in
Maslow to tell me what my needs are? What if my need is to call myself a turnip and walk around nude?
well, you still have your other social needs, which means that you have to adhere by the social standards. So despite your need or want to do whatever you want, you're still curtailed by your safety and your social needs. So that would be a basic need.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not necessarily convinced with that argument. How are people? Oh wait, they ain't discussing Newton or Foucault in the Village, guys. You're gonna be lonely. Interesting. He's right, but they're also not discussing Pan Africanism in the village, nor are they discussing, state movements and mass movements and universalism. No one's discussing Maslow's hierarchy of needs in the village either. What do you say to that, Tim?
I say that it is not for them to do so. It is up to us.
What's up to us?
To discuss those kinds of things. The people in the village are not expected to know the the concepts of, Pan-Africanism and socialism and Gavism and all that. They're simply supposed to, do what they are supposed to do, live their lives and feed their families and take care of their children and so on.
So then, how dare you inject yourself so violently on top of their existence? How dare you force yourself on their discourse so violently?
I'm not forcing myself at all. I am simply representing them in the intellectual circles. Oh,
Did they
wow.
ask you to do that?
So, okay, I know that sounds very elitist and snobbish, which it is not meant
Very
to be.
elitist, very snobbish, but did they ask you for that?
No, they did not.
That's kind of like the old joke where the slave goes, or was it the sharecropper goes to meet the white man, and he wants to ask for a day off, and he ends up having his wife get a second job, and he's like, "I didn't ask for a second job. I just wanted the day off." You know. So thank you for bringing us into their discourse.
Well, okay, fine.
Which ironically is a nightmare, right? Maybe that's the scariest nightmare, being injected in the Western discourse, no?
Well, yes, but unfortunately, just like they wouldn't discuss Foucault, they wouldn't also understand the perils of, being in the Western model, because what they see of the West is the shiny aspect of it. So they don't see the steps it took to get there. They don't see the social aspects of it. They simply see, oh, it's wonderful, it's celebrity, Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, all these people. That's what they see. So I don't expect them to be fully cognizant of all the facts, but it is up to those who do see beyond of that to say, well, I might not represent them, but I will, speak in their interest, because if we don't,
But
then,
again, how does that benefit them?
well, yeah, it doesn't really. It's simply defending them intellectually, I suppose. If one had power, one could do more, but we only have the power of speech.
I'm still confused as to how that helps them.
Well, it helps bear them by giving them a voice in the public sphere, by humanizing, by giving them agency, instead of someone always telling them what to be and who to be. Yeah, I think it gives them.
Wait, so let me ask you a question, right?
Mhm. Oh,
System. Should we not fear it, and should we not run away from it? Why run to it and give it legitimacy?
give the voice of the people legitimacy. I think that we need to give them the entire truth of the matter.
But what if they didn't exist?
If who didn't exist?
What if the very people you're trying to represent, what if they didn't exist? Not in the sense that they didn't physically exist, but they didn't exist within the Western canon.
If the so-called primitive or remote people didn't exist?
Yes, in the Western canon.
Well, I think our job then would be to keep it that way, to keep them in their non-existent state. But I don't.
So why are we not doing that now?
Because we can no longer do that, it's no longer possible because the barriers have already been pierced. Not only are, it's the Western state, in them, but they are also in the Western state. They are already exposed to it. So our duty is to give them the full exposure of it. And I think right now they have a skewed view of Westernization.
Okay, so on the Black Pentagrammers, shout out to Jose. Someone said that Africa was invaded, right? But I was showing that Africa wasn't invaded. So is this more of like a reactionary response to fight for them to have legitimacy within the Western canon, or should they be avoiding the Western canon?
Well, I think that not invaded physically, but definitely mentally, because the thinking of Africans right now is, yes, it's based on Africa to some extent. You don't need to have, that direct rule. We had mostly the indirect rule, but the thinking, the focus, the locus of Africans is with a view to the West, not only in solving the problems, but in also, the direction that they take, even politically, internationally. So I still think that, yeah, we have not been physically invaded, but mentally we have
So
been.
I'll ask you the question that I asked on the last show. If the West no longer exists, what happens to these primitive people?
Well, they go back to
Specifically the
being.
primitives.
Hmm?
I said specifically the primitives.
Well, they go back to being primitive. They go back to, you know, to living a good life, a simple life, and to just being who they are.
So effectively, is our service needed?
Yes, it's needed
If
so
they
that,
can so easily go back to being primitive, are we needed?
yes,
Hence,
we
I
need.
remember I talked to you about the philosopher and his poor.
Mhm. I think we needed to guide the poor in thought.
The poor in thought. What makes them poor in thought?
Well, because they do not have the full scope of the truth. They don't have the historical perspective and the global one as well.
But what makes you so sure that you have it?
All because I have seen the world and have read a lot. And
Yet you're still under his subjugation.
yeah, but with clearer eyes.
So you just decorated your prison much better.
Hmm?
So you just done a better job at decorating your prison.
Yes, but I do not wish others to get in the prison. I wish to lead them away and say, look, this is a prison, because what they're seeing right now is the gilded cage, the pearly gates, and they're
But
thinking
you
that
just said that if the West were to disappear, they would go right back to being their primitive selves.
if if it was to disappear, it has not. If
No,
it was
of course, we
disappear,
know
my work would be
as
done.
if. But why would they follow you if you haven't escaped the white man's dream, the nightmare?
Because I can see clearly now. I can see more
You can see
clearly.
clearly. You have Windex in your eyes. What's going on here?
Well, I have seen maybe more than they have, and understand where they were, because they had not seen the world. It's not to say that they are ignorant. It's only to say that if you have not experienced or seen other experiences, you would only think of the world in one way. So it's up to those who have seen to go back and tell others how it is.
I don't know. That's an interesting position. I remember my mentor telling me we're supposed to take the ingredients of the soup from the white man and throw it in the trash can, as opposed to feeding it to our people.
Well, I think that our people will only see things in the Western way. I think that if you try to give it to them,
But if that's the case, then they wouldn't run to being primitive if the West were to disappear.
Well, if the West was to disappear, then there would not be a problem. But right now, we're dealing with the overwhelming presence of the West, not even physically, but mentally, spiritually, even, in entertainment, in politics. No African can get away. Even if they have never encountered one, they're all still dealing with it. And we're still talking about local politics and tribal things, and we're not seeing the bigger picture. So for those who have seen the world from a bigger angle, is not to say that we're better, it's just that we have had more experiences.
And how is this not elitist on our part?
Well, yes, to some extent it is, but that is the direction of humankind. There are elite in every society. There is a pyramid society. Well, not all of them, but unfortunately, sometimes there is an elite in society. Maybe not elite, maybe an intellectual class, or the upper class, and so on. This is how the world runs. It's not from the masses coming together and having a 98% democratic vote. It's from a few people who guide the public perception, and they guide the people towards their bigger goals. So if a group of people, if a group of men say that this land is a great land, and they say, look, all we have to do is to get rid of the people who are here and bring some people in to work for us. And it's not that all their people are going to agree with them, but if enough of them do that, then they create it, and then eventually everybody will come to their side and agree that yes, it may not be right how they did it, but we're benefiting from it. So that's a great thing. But you can't always go to take a censor of the masses to find out what's good for them, especially when they're simply trying to live their lives. So it's not elitism. Yeah, it's privilege. Yeah, there is a certain privilege to it, but that's what you do with privilege. You use it to make your people better, or at least to give them that aspect
Yet
of
without Newton or the very Western ideology, you can't say the word mass.
that is
So there
true.
we are again in this nightmare.
Yeah,
Tan,
we
I'm scared of the
are.
dark. I'm scared of Newton's darkness. Get me out of this, please.
There is no getting out of it. All we can do is tell the people who are not in it to avoid it with all their
But
might.
the primitives are not in it. You just said it. If the Western superstructure dissolves tomorrow, the primitives go back to being themselves.
I'm not in disagreement. That's the case. They do go back to being themselves. But either we try to fight, the system, and we bring about that heavenly day when they will disappear, and we can go back to the forests and the trees. But between then and now, we have to prepare them and to tell them, look, the way you're living is how you're supposed to be living. Do not, try to copy this system that seems so beautiful and shiny from the outside. Stay how you are and teach your children to be who they are.
But again, do they need us to tell them that?
Yes,
Are they not doing that already?
yes, they do. Let me tell you why they do. Because they see a lot of especially the people that attend. That's why I say that we do this. We send one person to go, become the first person to do one, two, three, and so on. So the other people can benefit from it, financially and directly. But another thing too is that everybody, they tell their children, look, be like so and so, achieved and got this the dream and became a wonderful employee and so on. So yeah, they do look at that, and that's what they aspire to. So it's like a musician. Oh, that's such a, it's like a musician, talking about all the wonderful benefits of being a rapper and having the gold and the cars and all of that stuff, but neglecting to tell you about all the things that they had to do to get there. So right now, the dream as is presented, not just to Africa, but to the rest of the world, is this wonderful place where everybody is happy and everybody still wants to come here. So for those who have, tasted the dream, they should tell them, yeah, it's nice and good. It's nice to have these certain privileges and driving on the freeway and so on, but it comes at a heavy cost. most people don't see the cost, they only see the price.
But then who do they listen to? Okay, so I guess what I'm saying to you is, if the gods that they listen to are the Europeans, why would they listen to you and I if we're not seen as the gods that they should follow?
Because they see us as being proximate to that kind of
But they still see us as as what is it, defective, right? We're not in the position to legit, because think about it, if that was the case, then Pan-Africanism would be working today, because everybody would have listened to Nkrumah and listened to Kenyatta. No one listened to them. Get the hell out of here, man. You're just a Negro that went to a library,
but people did
right?
listen to them, and the reason why they listened to them specifically is because they were Western trained. The reasons why, afterwards they, maybe fell away from Nkrumah are different, but initially people did listen to all those people specifically because they had that Western training. Kenyatta went to the UK, Nkrumah, I believe, to the US, and all these people, they would not have listened to them if there was just a regular person who went to, Buruburu High School or, Kibera down the street. Yeah, no, they listened to them specifically because they went to those Western countries and came back with knowledge.
Is that accurate? They listened to them, or were they selected? Were the men of Pan-Africanism really, not all, I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there, were they really the cream of the crop in terms of who the communities chose? Or was it more that the Europeans chose them and they just happened to want their own, they wanted their taste of flesh, right? And so I'm just saying, like, because it's interesting you're saying that, the mass, and then I'm asking you that without Newton, without European uh, social organizations, we don't have, the concept of mass. There is no mass of people, right? What is the mass? It's just this concept. What is the social? There's no such thing as the social, or any of these things. So at least for me, I'm always, because again, I'm glad you're talking about, dreams and the darkness, but it's like, is our existence, right? Are we in the darkness of the European mind?
Yes, yes, we are. We are in the darkness of the European mind, and those who still have some African light are slowly making their way towards the darkness.
Are
So,
they?
yes, you have a very optimistic view of our people. Our people want to shed their Africanness and become, don, the Western gab.
I don't know about that. Break it down for me a little bit more.
Okay, well, in terms of culture, for example, the when Africans see themselves as improving or getting better, not just the people in the countryside, but also in the city, the first thing that they usually abandon is their tribes. In fact, in Kenya, if you have a child that does not speak Kiswahili, they somehow feel better than you, or doesn't speak the local language, the tribal language. They're like, my child is, this prideful apologetics. So they see their tribal um, practices, culture, and all that as not not useful, not relevant, and a lot of them are embarrassed by it. They look at that stuff as, oh, it's just the old grandparents nonsense and superstitions and this stuff. And nowadays, when they especially Kenyans are very quick to want to be progressive and on top of things and so on. So yeah, there's this aspect of there's respect for people who have been away, but there's yeah, people want to get one on them, but the fact that you have been away is a wonderful thing. People respect that. So it's shame in your traditional culture and this worship of the Western.
I don't know. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I will say that um, again, if 50% of Africans are living still rurally, then yeah, there's I can acknowledge that there's privilege to those who go abroad, but or who go to the city and things of that nature. But I think it's an unnecessary arrogance, and I think as opposed to and that's where a guy like Manolo is talking about coloniality. It's like the centers of knowledge have always come from the west or the metropolises, and I think we should try and take a step back and try to learn from them, as opposed to us always assuming we have to teach them. And that's why I mentioned to you about that concept of the philosopher and his poor. Why has philosophy, specifically Western philosophy, always talked about the shoemaker in particular? Right? What is up with this philosophizing always about the poor? It's if they know what the poor want.
Yeah, I would accept that. There is some, because even to philosophize, the poor do not philosophize. That's one thing that we also have to accept. So the philosophers feel that they need to, do it on behalf of the poor, because they lack, leisure is a privilege. Poor people don't have that privilege. So I think it's also a sort of guilt aspect of it on the philosopher side, saying, I have all the time in the world to sit back and think upon these things, and someone has to work 10 hours a day to earn their living. So maybe in a way that's also tied into it. But the other thing is also a sense of yeah, I don't say that you can't learn from the poor. That's why you can't simply just do armchair philosophy. You can't simply say, we're going to do this, which is what the West has always had, this paternalistic attitude towards Africa, that they don't consult the Africans, what they want or how they can solve the problems. They simply come and see and look at the problems and go back to the boardroom and come up with their solutions.
But 10 minutes ago, you were just pretty much doing the same thing.
Yes, but I'm not some outside person, looking in and dictating solutions. I'm one of the people. I'm not someone who's simply coming in and saying I am the people. I'm
Are
not
we still one of the people? We've been infected. No,
well,
I'm just being honest. Are we still amongst the people? We've been infected, right? Can we, adequately say that we can live without the West?
no, we cannot, but we still have enough sense to be able to, see at least when, at least see the mess in the chaos. So we can see that, yeah, this does not make sense, but we still have the common man's touch. We should, yeah. Oh yes, you're free to come on, Bona Haguziki. I put the link right there, and anyone else who wants to jump on, definitely. So as I was saying, that it's different if you're somebody who's from the inside, talking and working with people who are on, you regard them as one of you. The difference is that Western governments usually come in as this, overlords and overseers, and they want to impose their system on
Now
other.
here's me looking for trouble,
Okay.
and I'm not a fan of his. There was a gentleman, I won't say his name. He had a show a few days ago
Uh-huh.
chiding Pan Africans for doing the same thing. He was particularly, talking about Garvey. And again, I don't want to, go down Pan Africa because we're talking about dreams and shadows, but I'm just saying that, we've been infected by the Western virus. And so are we in the position to, you know, perhaps we can say, hey, don't be, you know, infected like us, but are we still one of the people?
Yes, yes, you cannot fully separate yourself from your people, even if you have gone away. There's going to be some distance, yes, and it's a distance that has to be overcome, but it's not an impossible one to bridge. So yeah, we still, especially, I think if you say that you're not one of the people anymore, you go the totally individualistic route where, okay, I left the ghettos and so on, and I'm out here in the suburbs, just living my life and so on, and you have no more thought or concern for the people that you left behind. But a lot of us still have people who are in those places, in those situations, and we're still, we're not that far
Is
away.
that survivor's remorse, or
mm,
perhaps survivor's arrogance?
mm, wow, wow, I have to think about that. To give myself the benefit of that, no, it's a bit of remorse, but it's also a duty. It's also a duty that one still has for your people. You don't
A
simply
burden, you would say?
know a duty.
No, I mean,
duty
what's the difference between duty and burden? No, similar or no?
duty is honorable. Duty is noble, whereas a burden is to be redundant, burdensome. It's not a burden, it's responsibility. Yeah. So
So, what is the difference between the African man's Pan African duty and the white man's Eurocentric colonial burden?
because one stems out of fellow feeling and another one stems from superiority and arrogance. So Gavi, for example, okay, that was funny. From a white man's burden to a black woman's burden. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of burdens you're carrying, Ted.
No,
There's an
it,
old Negro spiritual where they used to say, "Cast their burdens down by the riverside, down by the riverside, down by the riverside." Those who are like, if you went to a black church in America, you know that song.
no, we had a burden song, but it was so slow and sad. One of those hymns. It was just very depressing. Um, no, 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 no. It's only you can't even be refereeing out there in the in the, what is it, in the boondocks. No, look, he's trying to say that somehow that I got whooped. I have not gotten whooped. I'm carrying this. Oh, but Haguziki, if you're in there, it says your device is not connected, so yeah, you might be trying to to come in. So no, I'm still winning this one. You're just mad that you're not playing. But I was saying, okay, yes, Bona Haguziki, yeah, save me over here. But I was saying this, and winning on my ad, I was saying that it's not a burden. Doing something for your people is not, especially telling them the truth about how things are, is that it's your duty. It's like when people, if you had when people are being sold as slaves, if somebody, a slave, came back and said, you know what, it's terrible over there in the new world, stop doing this to your own people and stop going over there, and so on, maybe things would have been different. Hmm?
I don't know, Ted. I don't know.
Well, I just think that it is our duty as those who know, as those who do have the privilege to go back and let the other people know. I think that if you realize that this is a prison, the least that you can do is not tell other people to come in, and the whole misery loves company, but you're supposed to warn them and say, look, things are not as great as they are, and you're wrong for wanting to be here, because if the people who are good people, the people who are in the remote areas and so on in the countryside, and who are still living the natural life as close to it as possible, they also want the same thing for their children. If they had a chance, they one of the maybe they're just living like that because they say, oh well, we don't have a choice. But given a choice, they would also want the privileges and benefits of westernization. Maybe it's you who is wrong in denying them these things and thinking that you know better than them. Maybe.
No, but I'm not denying them. I'm just stepping back and saying, "Hey, look at me."
Yeah, I'm also saying the same thing. Look at us. Stay where you are. Okay, wow. Okay. Bwana Haguziki, I hope you're here to help. Tag team.
No, 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 not at all. Good night,
Oh,
by the way.
wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
Habari Tan, Habari Gas. I'm
Nzuri
not here to
sana.
save. I'm not here to save anyone because I think that Tan is fully capable of
Yeah, thank
defending
you.
herself against. I just like to hear that the high-minded dialogues between the so-called intellectuals. When Matron and Tan and Gas, go at it. I like to hear when they spar with each other because you learn a lot in listening from a distance. You learn a whole lot from it. So I ain't trying to save anyone. I'm just really just listening. And I really need to stay off of this internet because this is taking me away from what the hell I'm doing. I really need to stop listening to this stuff through the week. But I want to ask a question though, because Gas made a statement, and I thought about it, and I'm thinking that he said that why don't and I'm paraphrasing Gas, so forgive me. By the way, I heard that dig earlier. You can have a go at me if you want to, man. We intellectually sparring, man. It don't matter. But he you forgive me for the paraphrasing your words, but you made a statement and make in saying that maybe we should defer to the villages or village the people who are in the village or that life as opposed to it being the other way around, as opposed to um, the city centers, the metropoles sending the information to the villages and them instructing the villagers. It should be the other way around. Am I right or wrong in that in trying to paraphrase that, or you could correct me? Is that right or
No,
wrong?
one, I don't think I took a shot at anyone. Correct me. I
Oh,
don't
I
think I
thought
said
you said
anything.
I don't want to mention that. I thought you was just taking a shot at that right.
No, no, I
My
wouldn't take a
bad.
shot at anybody. No.
Yeah.
Um, no, but what I was saying is that knowledge, the way it's set up, is it's only flowing one way.
Okay. So if it was both ways, it would be a better situation.
I don't know if it would be better. I'm just saying, but the way it's set up right now is just one way.
Okay. So
Like
if
I'll
I
put it like this: the old village guy,
yes.
or the PhD will never, for the most part, think he has anything or she has anything to learn from the village person.
Okay. He if a PhD person feels like he couldn't learn anything from a village, he would be a fool. He would be an educated fool. I would take that position. And that if that's the assumption is that we can't learn nothing from these poor lowly so-called ignorant villages, me and my high-minded PhD or whatever professional degree I may hold, that's a I think that's a failing. I think that would be a terrible way of looking at things because it's like I think the I Ching, the Taoists say that you should not neglect advice just because it's coming from a place of a lowly person, a person from a low status or low position, nor should you accept advice just merely because it's coming from a person in a high position or a so-called respected position. On that front, I would agree. That's ridiculous. Why would I not take advice from a person who may have a perspective that's different from mine solely on the basis that their situation is not, in my eyes, is not as good as mine. This person is not as educated as I am. Therefore, he doesn't understand the world as I do. So I shouldn't. I think that would be a
But with
ridiculous.
that said, then show me the discourse of the primitive on how to escape Western, you know, the
How
Western
I took
nightmare.
how I took how to escape. That's a whole other question.
No, I'm saying, where's the discourse? Like, there's no
Okay,
discourse
my
that we
discourse
know
is
of.
this: from my perspective, from based off of what I heard, if we was to look instead of looking at the world, instead of taking the information from the Western world or the metropoles or the city center and using the instruction from village life and what that entails and all that good stuff. And what I mean is just flipping it. It's like we just take all the information from this side and take no information from that side. I look at historically, I looking at the situation from a historical basis. So historically, if if the village, the whole village setup as it exists in Africa was allowed to develop through its natural progression and natural course, maybe they would have went to industrialization and all these other things. Maybe it may not look. Maybe the whole idea of a contemporary Africa may not
But
necessarily.
here's the thing, Mr.
No, let
Untouchable.
me let me finish
Industrialized.
it.
Okay,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead, go ahead.
Maybe it may not necessarily look like how contemporary Africa looks, which is just a imitation of the Western world. But surely they would have developed naturally in the progression of whatever they would experience with the land and so-called improvement on it, or technologicalize or whatever, mechanization and all these other things. They maybe through a natural progression they would have reached to a particular point. But now, as it stands, because of our history, that history was interrupted, and there is some underdevelopment that occurred because you can't take out masses amounts of people, which is really the brilliance, the sciences, the thinking, all of that. Take that, extract that out of a continent, and divert it to another side of the world, and expect all the things that I'm going to say you are suggesting, all the things as far as human development to remain in that circumstance. There's going to be a big degree of retardation. So if you defer to that, there's going to be some shortfalls, a whole lot of shortfalls. There's going to be a whole lot of information that's missing, because our history was interrupted, and our history through that interruption, I feel like there's a lot of underdevelopment that occurred, and I feel like that can't be ignored. So even if we was to flip it, and instead of deferring to this whole European world thing and just defer to that village kind of life, I feel like there's going to be a whole lot of shortfalls because of our history being interrupted, because of the undevelopment of what occurred due to our historical situation. What do you say to that? Or
I just want to ask you very quickly, or point out that industrialization, even in the European concept, was not something that occurred between two-way exchange of information from the villages to the metropoles. Almost everything that we see in the modern world today comes from the hegemony. So that comes from the top spheres of society for the most part, and then it's pushed down, to everyone else. So, like, you can look at the book From Peasants to Frenchmen, right? And so the ideas that we have of development don't come from a European engagement that's like, oh, the people in the outside of the metropolises were having engagements with those who were in the metropoles. No, it wasn't like that. It was the people in the metropole saying, this is what's going to happen, and they used force, and they used state apparatuses to enforce what it is that they wanted. So I think there's a book, Local History, Global Design. So the local design is forced on everyone to adhere to.
But how is that different from what happened in African societies, where if the king made a decision, then it was a top down approach.
But he couldn't do that.
I'm gonna practice this religion, therefore my people are gonna practice this religion as well. How is that different?
It's very different. One, the idea, even when we use king, again, we're using the European word.
Just
They didn't have
yeah.
they didn't have
Forgive me for that.
absolute. No. I'm using it too. But what I'm
Yes.
saying is that they didn't have absolute power the way that like for the most part, from what I've seen and read, the little bit that I've read about African history, I don't think there was any king that could just wake up and say, "Yo, uh, 10, I don't like your YouTube channel. You're going to be locked up in the dungeon." You know, he couldn't just come and say, "Oh, Buana, I don't like the way your wife made those dumplings on Thursday. Nah, you're going to jail." But in Europe, that could happen, right? The divine right of the king. And so, there were extreme checks and balances um, in many African societies, instances of checks and balances that existed. So I'm
So
just saying that. Okay, let's look at Mansa Musa's society, right?
okay.
Um, he becomes, well, they were already Muslim, but not everybody in that region was Muslim. That was like what the so-called governments used, but everybody in that situation wasn't a Muslim. More importantly, he didn't have supreme authority over the people in that sense. He couldn't just come in and tell you what to do in your household, right? And even if he said everyone is Muslim, there was no, like these people had the Inquisition. Like if you didn't go to church and confess, they would burn you. You were heretic. Like we don't have that.
Yeah, but Gas, you telling me that a king, or well, let me say a king or a chief or whatever you want to call him, the head of an African nation, with the backing of his military, didn't use force if people didn't see things within that particular nation, or was suggesting, well, we don't agree with what this particular chief wants. We really don't want that. You don't think that what you're saying is he didn't have the ability to use any kind of force to force people into
I'm
his
saying
way
his
of.
society wasn't organized. His or her society wasn't organized to where it could play out that way. Right? There are many instances of African rulers who, when they heard about the rules, that existed in European societies, they were like, "Man, how do you live? There's a rule for this. There's a this for this." Like they didn't set up the social apparatuses to enforce that. Whereas in Europe, they did. The legislatures and interpreters um, in European society sat down and said, "How can we socially control human bodies in our environment?" Right. My theory is that they studied the human body. So as you look at it, the police act like white blood cells, right? The capitals act like your brain, right? And so the business centers act like the heartbeat. So after they study the human body, then they start coming up with different social apparatuses to control, the humans within their locality.
So how were decisions made when it came to governing thousands of people? I mean, if my society wanted to take a particular direction, and human beings are
That's a great
disagreeable.
question.
Human beings. Let me finish. Human beings are disagreeable. So well, logic would tell me that it would fall down to a certain group of people, or even one person making a decision, say, hey, this is gonna happen ultimately. Because if you don't do that, your society stagnates. And I mean, you could say that leadership in Africa was almost completely democratized, but I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't necessarily agree with that. But maybe I could be wrong. I'm talking to two continental Africans who understand the history better, probably better than me. So,
No, I don't. No, you probably know
defer to
more
what
than
y'all
I
say.
do.
Nah,
But here's
I
what you
doubt
said.
it. I doubt it.
No, but look
But
at what you said. You said 1,000 people, right? And ironically, you know, That's why I told Tan earlier, you don't have the word mass without Newton. There is no mass of people in you know, like the king didn't have that much authority that he had in the West. If you juxtapose it to other societies outside of the West, I don't know
So
if do you agree with that?
when you say that much, he had authority, but he just didn't have absolute power. Is that what it is? That's the
No,
difference.
he didn't have the social apparatuses to enforce his authority. And more importantly, I would argue he didn't have the social mind to create those type of apparatuses.
I don't know. I don't know, Gas man. I tend to disagree with that. I might disagree with that a little bit because here's the reason why I would say this, and I could be wrong. If we say that the king didn't have that kind of authority, I'm thinking about places like
No, I'm saying apparatus. I didn't say authority. I'm
apparatuses.
saying apparatuses.
Apparatuses is when you talk about force. When you talk about
No,
control.
not force. I'm saying force. Anyone can muster up soldiers, right? They had soldiers. They had
Yes,
armies. I'm
yes.
talking about apparatus. Like again, if you don't confess, you are seen as as a heretic. If passports, state IDs,
Oh, that's something different.
these
I'm not talking about.
yes,
That's
but
something
that's
different.
what but that is what creates Western hegemony.
That's
That's
something
what
different.
that no, but it's not different. It's
It's
because
different,
what?
guys.
Okay, tell me how it's different.
Because when I talking about the level of control and authority, I'm saying that when we was talking about religion, just on the basis of religion, if the king took up, let's say, Islam and say, well, my people are gonna be Islamically kind of like oriented, the majority of the people are gonna follow that. If they're not coerced to, or just by the fact that their king is a Muslim, they're gonna be brought up under some kind of force. It's like you either gonna be a must get down or lay down. Yeah,
But you have to
So
give me an example of how of where that played out. One and two.
Islamic societies that did that. That's that. Okay, that's
No,
fine.
but okay, perhaps that did happen. I'm not debating that. But however,
Yes.
if that was the case, if it was so absolute and if it was that strong, you wouldn't see any example of African traditional belief systems in existence today because Islam
No,
has
I
been.
No, I don't. I
Yeah,
agree. When you say that when you say that it wasn't absolute, I could agree. I could understand where you're coming from with that. The authority is for in Africa wasn't absolute. We could agree, but as far as the level of control and authority, I think that and influence, I think that it was there to a degree to where if you disagreed with the king, you could be made or you could be forced to. Maybe it didn't go for everyone in Africa. Maybe there are some people who are able to still practice their um, cultural or native religions and things of that nature.
but
You could
how
be
would the king know?
like you say, if you're in governance over 1,000 people, two
If you
thousand,
have 20,000 people in your room, how do you know what the
you're not gonna
majority of
know.
people are
Right,
doing?
right,
You're
right.
not. So
But
the only way you can know, that's what I'm saying. You're trying to separate, and that's where Foucault is important. You're
Mhm.
trying to reduce power to the physical, I can punch you, might is right, and that is a form of power. But the
Yeah,
most insidious, most dangerous form of power is the apparatus. That's why Foucault talks about the panopticon, because I can build a prison and put a guard in the middle of the prison in the watchtower. And the prisoners, knowing that there's a guard there, effectively will start to behave as if they're always being watched, even if you don't put a guard there. Just the idea, oh no, somebody should be there. It's kind of like if you put a sign that says this premise is under 24/7
yeah,
surveillance,
conditioning. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Most criminals will say, nah, I'm not even going to risk it. They're like, nah, I'm not risking it. Let me go to this other place because they can be lying to me, but it's not worth the risk. So I'm saying that what you're saying is true in terms of power. I think that's, for the lack of a better term, let me sound like a Newtonian, that might be universal, right? Everybody wants power in that sense. It corrupts, right? However, if you don't create the social apparatuses to establish that power, it's almost impossible. So if you're an African king and you come out and you say, I, wanna say all of you are Muslims. Yes, King Bwana, we're all Muslims. You go to sleep. How are you gonna stop Tan from dancing the Watutsi and calling on, the Kenyan god of water? How? You can't.
Well,
Now, if you have an institution, or if you have institutions and social apparatuses that monitor Tan's behavior, aha. But there's no African, or not just African, the Native Americans don't have it. We didn't create these social apparatuses. We didn't do it.
And to reference what you're saying, the Africans may not have had the apparatuses of what you're talking about, because I'm kind of understanding, but the Muslims did bring in these so-called apparatuses. So like you said, if a king says that we are Muslims now the nation is gonna bring in their own madrasas within that African institution and teach you the social mores of Islam, etc., etc., etc. So the king don't necessarily have to put his hand on you. Now the school gonna condition you to have that sentiment of there's a God standing right at the tower, and if I don't do these things, I'm disobeying not only Allah, but I'm disobeying the king, all these other kinds of you understand what I'm saying or no?
I understand what you're saying, but and if that was the case, then when they came into certain Islamic communities in Africa, they wouldn't have seen, some big booty women who were not 100% sold on Islam. They wouldn't have seen some African men who weren't 100% sold on Islam.
Listen, you don't find 100% anything, but what I'm saying is what they did.
But you do find 100% of things in the West, for the most part.
Hold on, though, Gas. What they did is they mixed, just like we did in the West as well, by the way, and I'm gonna give you an example of that. They mixed the religion, they mixed the Islamic religion in with their religions. So you don't gonna find it to be to 100%, but they're gonna still be conditioned anyways. They're gonna still be Muslims, but they on the side they're gonna practice their own traditional African beliefs and whatever you want to call it. In the same sense, we did the same things in Haiti. You see what they say about Haiti. They say that Haiti is 99% Catholic and 100% voodoo. So. Yes, they're gonna practice. Yes, they're gonna practice the Islamic faith and all that stuff, but they're gonna also practice their own concept syncretism.
If what you're saying is 100% correct, and I'm not disputing you, what I am saying is this: how many Europeans today talk about Zeus? How many Europeans today say, "I swear before Hera," or "I swear before a Celtic god"? They don't. So
really?
That's what I'm trying to say. No, there's again. You have the new age reference to Wicca and things like that. But what I'm trying to show you is that within Western society, rationalism has taken over. Rationalism is the new juju. It's the new god. Sure. What's happened is that, they no longer talk about their old gods because they have been successfully replaced by this new god of rationalism and reason.
I think.
However, if you're saying Islam was that good, then it should have eradicated any reference, just the same way in the West. The West successfully eradicated almost all references to the old gods, right? But we don't do that in Africa.
I think that.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, brother. Go ahead. You cook it. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that if because you're saying that in Africa, Islam and other things allow for a leader to have absolute power and control, and I'm saying that doesn't exist without the social apparatus.
Sure.
Without the social institutions, you don't have that.
I think with the reference you use as far as rationalism in the West being a new juju, the West does have a degree of syncretism going on, because you would hear a so-called right-wing person in the same when he talks about rationalism and logic and things like that, he would also mention the fact that he's a born again Christian. You know what I mean? That's his syncretism. They mix the two, and you said oil and water don't mix. They do mix the two. They do synchronize. They did still keep their. Well, I mean, if you consider Christianity is as far as their old form of religion or their old form of juju, they did keep that, but they I feel like they mix this idea of reason, Ayn Rand with Benny Hinn. You know, they do it. They do it all the time. I mean, you watch Fox News, these people in one breath, they talking about Ayn Rand, who's a staunch atheist, and then they'll have a born again conservative Southern Baptist Christian on there at the same time. And the West, or the Western mind, doesn't see the contradictions of the two. Yeah. So I feel like they have their own form of syncretism going on. From my perspective, I could be wrong about that. You know what I mean? Hello?
No, I agree. There is 100%. There is syncretism.
You said something after the fact. I can't remember what it is now, man. It left me.
No, I'm just saying that I look at it because Tan is being quiet purposely to save herself from the ropes. But go ahead, sir.
No. He said that there wasn't an institution. There wasn't an institution to back up the fact. And I'm saying that in Africa, the Muslims did bring in that idea of the institution. Like I say with the madrasas, the schools, and
but that's not a Western institution. Is it? That's
I'm talking about in Africa.
No, but no. What I'm saying is, again, what happens with what, in my opinion, with your example is that if you say the Muslims brought this in, what the Muslims brought in is not passports. The Muslims didn't bring in state IDs.
Okay.
The Muslims didn't bring in the idea of the vagabond. The Muslims didn't bring in the Enclosure Acts.
I understand
what the Europeans did is so unique and weird and alien around the world.
I understand what you're saying.
But what you understand what I'm saying? So now if I give them the credit of doing what the Muslims did, then I might as well not say anything.
I understand.
But the Muslims didn't do that. You know, the Muslims, even in Islamic societies, if I dropped you in Morocco in 1433, yeah, you might miss, going back home to Nigeria, but at least, you can still marry your wife. You get a little big booty North African girl. You can marry two. The music ain't the same, but you'll still dance.
Women from North Africa have big booties.
Oh man, listen, you gotta go out there, man. You gotta go out there.
I didn't know that.
You gotta go there, man. Go over to Morocco.
I didn't know that. Yeah, man, I'm gonna get off, man, because I'm not even supposed to be on this long. But it was a good build. I appreciate y'all guys giving me the time, and I'm gonna get off of this internet, because if I stay on this internet, I'm not gonna do any work, man. So thank you for having me, Tan. I'll talk to y'all later. All right.
Most welcome. Welcome. Karibu. Wow, that was interesting.
You pretty much ran away.
He did hold up his own. I'll give him that.
No, you ran away. You were supposed to.
Oh, me? I did not run away. I was just.
He didn't run. Me and Brother Untouchable, he didn't run away. No, he's doing what he has to do. I'm talking about you. You ran away.
I did not. I was just being respectful and letting the men speak.
No. You allowed him to come in and save you.
No, he did not even come here to save me. He said that explicitly from the beginning. I am not here to save you. You don't need no saving. I'm here to state my position. Everybody, read the comment.
Everybody knows the rope is back. Pro-black perspective, right? She was on the ropes. And he came in and saved you. But it's okay. It's okay.
Oh man, Oni is just against me. He's anti-Tan perspective. Ever since I don't know what I did to him. Will I do that? Did somebody hurt you, Oni? Did a black woman hurt you? That's an easy one to go to. But yeah, he's
He's
always
hurt, right?
against me,
He doesn't
biased.
love his mom, right? He's
Yes, he's
bitter.
yeah, he's just a misogynist. He just likes to see black women fall. Yeah, Oni is a sexist, misogynist, black woman hating. Yeah, yeah, pro black, more like pro black man, anti black
Only you gotta
woman.
come on and defend yourself.
Yeah, Oni, just hiding there in the comment section, like the like hat boy that you are. does that and anybody else who wants, but I will say this though, that Mr. Bwana Haguziki kept saying that, oh, the Muslims brought that authority and so on. So that means that before Islam, before religion, basically the kings had no power over their subjects.
Say that question again, real quick.
So you all agreed that the Muslims brought, this sort of authority of the ruler to dictate to his subjects. So does that mean that in African societies, the king had no authority over his subjects?
I mean, what is your definition of such?
Is that did the other men respect the king? Did they take authority from him, or was he just looked at as just one of them? Was there a sort
I don't
of...
know. I don't know if give me an example of how it played out. Give me a working model.
Okay, so for me, I know that the usual model was, the king was more, a voice of the people, and decisions went through many different channels before it came to him. So the Council of Elders, the Council of Women, the young people, and so on and so forth. And then he was the final decision maker. So when it came to making decisions, the king had a voice. But when it came to running the lives of people, the king had very little authority over, his fellow people. So there was not this, this reverence and authority that other societies have for their leaders, this heroic view of things. We really don't have that, respect for leadership that other people maybe had.
I'm
Anyway,
just saying that it's not within the discourse where a leader had the ability to, just come out and say, Tan, I don't like you, off with your head.
yeah, they didn't have that authority. I wanted to tell, when Haguziki that a king could not just come and, tell you what to do in your own house, in your own homestead. There were certain rules you had to follow, but the ruler was not really, and even the matron read that in, the Sheikh and Diop, with the king. The king was not so much a servant, but he put his needs after those of the people, in a way. So he felt that his his I don't know how to say it, but his strength came from the respect of the people through his deeds, through his character, through what he achieved, rather than his ability to bend them to his will. Anyway, I don't know if I'm making sense, but Oni is out for my jugular today. So yes,
Hey,
brother
listen,
Bakari.
Oni, listen, if you want, on Friday, 10 is going in for a debate. So I think you all should tune in. 10 will have a debate. So if you really want to see her get knocked out on the ropes, tune into the Black Pentagram is on Friday. Gasdemup channel. She for the next 2 weeks she's gonna be on you know she's gonna be fighting. So
Well, so yeah, Brother Bakari, I'm going to get all my troops, in line, and we're going to have a Hera versus Thor, you know, top
yeah,
down.
actually you should invite as many people as you want to Friday's debate so they can help you in the chats and everything.
Yeah, yeah. Brother Bakari, you're more than welcome to come and handle this for me. That's the power of, the woman. She doesn't have to fight all her battles.
Well, with that said, I'm gonna step off, but I'm gonna let you get back to talking about dreams. I just wanted to let us all know that we're still sleeping on the white man's pillow. So I felt
All
it too.
right, peace. It's
All
been
right.
wonderful. Have a good one. Okay, so thank you, Gasdemup. And no thanks to you, Oni. You have just been against me all day long. I don't know what I did to you. Yeah, I did not know what I did to you, but yeah, no, not saved by the bell. Look, I just won fair and square, and when you have to tap in, you have to tap in. You just have to say, look, this fight is too much for me. I have been, fighting my best, but just 10, 9, and then you're all done. So yeah, this is a win for me, as I was not saved by the bell. I was saved by my own ingenuity. But only you're more than welcome to come back on. So yeah, this turned out to be a preview of next week's discussion, which was supposed to be about. Oh man, yeah, I'll have to do some bit of technological. Oh wow, Brother Bakari, you said Gasdemup always runs from you. You respect my brother. Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah, he's always running. He's always running. Yeah, but I let him and Bwana Haguziki go at it, and I think Bwana Haguziki held his own, as I think I did, and I would have appreciated more reinforcement. By the way, I'm not pointing any fingers, but I am just wildly pointing. Let me start pointing fingers. I'm going to point. Oh, the debate. Let me see. The debate was, I think he brought it around to that we should more listen to the people in the remote areas than try to tell them what the truth is about the world. Can you understand that? Does that make sense? Are you talking about the future debate? But the debate today was, I was saying that we in the West, at whatever level of diasporic we are, those of us who have encountered the West have a duty and responsibility to go back to the people who may not have that full access to the information, the belly of the beast, however you choose to call it, and almost warn them away from certain paths. And Gasdemup said, well, why do you think you have more authority to tell them, what to do instead of listening to them? And I said, well, it's not that you have more authority, it's just that you have more access, more privilege. We cannot deny the privilege of being, in this place. It's not to say that we are better. It's not to have the same, paternalistic attitude, condescending attitude towards Africans and our people, as you say, oh, we know what's good for you. We might know what's good for them, not because we're better than them, but because we are a part of them. We don't separate ourselves from our people because just knowing something is not to say that now you're suddenly, free of the chains. Knowing that you're enslaved does not mean that you're free, but at least those who know can work towards their freedom. Yeah. Does that sort of summarize it to some extent? Focused? Ndugu focused? Sema. Sema is to say. Oh, we have not had a word for the day. So the word for the day is sema. And sema is, interestingly, to say. So you forgot what, sorry? So sema is say. So you know how Kokou says, "What say you, brother?" So and so. So in Kiswahili, you'd say, "Unasema nini?" What say you? Okay, so that's our Kiswahili lessons for the day. And I always remember, because Bwana Haguziki reminds us we have to say, at least, improve our Kiswahili. So, sema, as I said, and that one is simple because, it's easy to say. There's no double consonants and pronunciations. And yeah, sema just means to say. Yes. Nisema means I say. Oh yeah, you're remembering how to put the sentences together. That is awesome. Ni is me. So nisema is I say. Yeah. So there you go. Unasema nini? To quote Kokou is, what say you? Yes, I like that too. So yeah, sema means to say. So to say u is you. The only thing that you have to remember is the order of words is different in Kiswahili. So unasema is u, is you, and then na is, like we said, the tense, the time. So right now, what say you? And then sema is say, as we learned. And then nini is what. So in Kiswahili, it's sort of the other way around. Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. Oni is learning. I don't know if you're learning or you went and got that real quick from somewhere. I won't say, but that is true. Unasema Kiingereza means, do you speak English? Okay. Wow. Okay, you get that one. Yeah, you get a point. You get a brownie, half a brownie point, or 3/4. Okay, yes, unasema Kiingereza. Kiingereza is English, and you'll see the Kiswahilization of what's there, because English is is there in the NG, so English is Kiingereza. Yeah, there you go. And like we learned, Ki is language of. So technically, when people say Swahili is the people, Kiswahili is the language. So Kiingereza is the language of English, and Wangereza are the people who are English. So just a technical. Wow, look at the pro-black pot calling the African kettle brown. Did you see the irony there? Me being cheap, the legendary cheapskate, thrifty, miserly Oni calling me cheap. Wow. I gave you more than I have. If I give you 3/4 of a brownie, that means I'm left with 1/4. So I gave you more than I had. I should have given you 1/4 fairly, because it's my brownie after all. So I really should. I am more than generous, giving you 3 and keeping just 1 for myself. being the generous, altruistic person that I naturally am. Wow. That's what you get. Coco is saying that's Google. See, now who's taking away from your shine, Oni? Is it me or is it your fellow brother stabbing you in the back? Yep, stabbing you in the back. Yeah, I only have one brownie because I am conservative. I am frugal, where you're just cheap. That's all. Yeah, I only have one brownie, but I gave you 3/4. So that means you had none before. Think about that. You had none before. Now he said that you googled the Kiswahili. Where's your Kiswahili? You said hold on, before you're talking all that stuff about me being saved by the bell. I'm saved by the bell, but you can't even show your face in class. Yeah. Oh yeah. Koku was saying that only you just went and Google this stuff. Yeah. That's Google. Google is your friend. Yes, indeed. The more you know, it is good to know. It's good to know. So yeah. So that's me today. It started out a very terrible, everything was chaotic, and at least Matron gets her stuff eventually together. Mine, I just gave up completely. I just said this thing is not working and I'm just going to give up. But I did try for at least 40 minutes. So I'll give myself that credit. But it turned out to be pretty okay. So I'm glad you all showed up. It's been a week. Maybe a week makes one rusty. Man, I don't know. But yeah, if somebody wants to join in, you can. If not, I will ramble on for a good 10 minutes at the most, and then you can all go back to your dreary lives. And your various, So in summary, we were talking about the elitist attitude of the intellectuals like us who feel that because we have read certain books, we know what is good for the regular man. Well, Gasdemup said, let's not call them the masses. Let's call them what? Our fellow, our better, primitive but noble ones. And for me, I think that no, there are some things that when I was back home, I would never have known. I would never have even thought about. I just took a lot of things for granted, especially just being amongst my own people. When you're looking at things from a local point of view, but also looking beyond that, you have a very distorted image. It's like instead of seeing the mirror, you're seeing both the convex and the concave mirror. The convex one is the one that, one exaggerate and one limits. So you can keep up with what's going on in the world, but you're not really understanding the global perspective of it. Where somebody who has traveled, somebody who has gone elsewhere, that's why it's important to just move. You see a lot of the changes that were made by people were not made by the people who are there. It was usually the people who left and came back. Because when you leave and come back, you both see what the problem is and you see the possible solutions. Maybe it might not be your solution to give, but you might as well point out what the problems are. You might as well tell maybe Africans not to be so welcoming of everybody, to protect their communities and their people and their culture, and all on to hold on to something that still means something and that has value, and sometimes it takes someone else to show you the value in yourself, unfortunately. I always say Wow. When we back home, we speak Kiswahili and we just speak it. There are those people who think that, oh, not knowing Kiswahili makes them better than other people, but they quickly realize that you cannot live in Nairobi and not know Kiswahili. Not even all you have to know, and you don't even have to know a lot of it. Like, you just throw in a Kiswahili word now and then, and people are like, okay, you're okay, and they'll be like, all right, they'll let their guard down. But if all you're just speaking is English, they'll just look at you like, oh, this one. So they appreciate somebody who says, even if all you can say is habari, and they'll be like, okay, well, at least you've heard of Kiswahili. That's good. That's great. And the fact that somebody else is acknowledging your existence is a big thing. Sometimes we look, the reason why we look to other people to validate us is because we don't validate ourselves. We don't validate each other. We don't see the good that other people have. All we see is the negative. Oh, these people are this and that and so on. And we don't see what other people, are good with, and this is something that is new, because in the past, I think we saw, the goodness in everything. We saw the goodness in, music from other African countries, other, Caribbean countries, and yet it's surprising, but we did get, Jamaican music, Caribbean/Jamaican music. We did get Black American music. We got all that, stuff, and it was wonderful and great. And back home, we didn't have that negative narrative of, oh, these people, this and that. It was just all cool. So sometimes we don't see the good in each other, and when somebody acknowledges your good or your importance, it gives you that, boost. It makes you feel like, oh wow, people really want to start, speaking Kiswahili in California, and they're, oh man, you hear about these African-centered schools, and you're like, they were trying to get to us, they just didn't go far enough. They just didn't reach us. That's the tragedy, that they were trying to get to Africa, they just didn't reach Africa. Even when you hear about the era in hip hop when, there was this African love and, wearing African garb. I've heard it from Kabisi Fox. Yeah, he does a really good series about that. And so he talks about that when there was a time when it was an African-centered music, and unfortunately we didn't hear about it, I guess. The memo didn't reach us back in Africa, and we got to where it was just the gangster rap and all this stuff, and we still embrace that. That was still cool, but we didn't get that part where people are actually trying to connect with us as Africans. So anyway, so that's that for me today. If anybody wants to come on, you can. If you have something to say, you're more than welcome. But yeah, that was me rambling on for a good 10 minutes. I don't know if that's more that that, but that's me. Wow, damn! What happened with everyone? What happened with the Caribbeans? You all just went quiet. Am I still on? Sometimes I don't know. I'm not quite sure. So do let me know. Am I still on? Just answer that at least. So I don't think that I have been. Oni, are you playing a prank on me again, Oni? At the pro-black perspective, or is it just me? Kokou? Yeah, I am still on. What, you can't hear me? Look, I do not believe a word that you say. From now on, everything that you say is up for review. Let me just say that. Yes. Okay. So I will trust our matron before I take anything that you say for fact. Wow, terrible. Terrible. No, I'm not even putting that up. I am not even putting that up. Okay, so before we go, we're going to keep it short for today until I sort out my my technological issues. So does everybody want us to go a little bit later on, because today I went on at about 4, 5, 6, 7, which is about 7 o'clock Eastern time, and I think it's unfair that the East Coast is dictating the terms of our times, that all of you are just on the wrong side of the world. And yeah, so I have to keep up with you instead of the other way around. But in any case, I don't know how to do that poll thing. I'll figure it out the next time. But can anyone just tell me if it's better to have it later on in the evening at around, let's say, to start around this time? What is this time? What is this time over there? Can somebody just type in the time over there? No, I did not leave. Okay, yeah, okay. Focused would have joined. That's a shame. That's a shame. Well, if you're on later on, I'll be there to join. If you're having a broadcast later on, Ndugu Focused. So whoever is on later on, I will join you guys. Okay, so 9:30. Oh, wow, that's terrible. Okay. So I don't want to keep you guys up too late either. So what would be the best time to start? Can we say that? The best time for you guys in your time, and then we'll figure out. I'll figure out my time, because I know that I'm 3 hours behind everyone. So is 9:30 the time now, or is 9:30 the time when you want to start? Oh, welcome, karibu sana Kokou Medicine Podcast.
Yeah, peace. I had to come on. It was looking kind of bad there for a while. No one was coming up.
I was struggling there womanfully,
Yeah, so I see you trying to figure out the time to come on.
Mm-hmm.
What time did you come on today? 7:30? 4:30 in your time?
Yeah, about 4:30 my time. Yes.
Yeah, I think it was a good time for well, I'm on the East Coast, so it was a good time.
Yes, apparently East Coast runs the show. Yes, even Matron is same time as so I'm the only one. I have to abide by everyone's time. So today's time was 4:30 for me, 4:35, 6, 7:30, and 7:30 for the East Coast. So okay, we'll do 7:30 then. We'll do 7:30.
All right, 7:30 it is.
Yes, from Black perspective, women manfully as opposed to manfully. Don't want to give any, TR vibes over here.
I kind of missed it, and I'm not gonna keep you here long. But how did you and Gas go down that road in that conversation?
Oh, well, today just started as a wash. I had the perfect, everything put together. I had, my presentation. I had, the title. I will have to change it because it was just, we veered completely away from it. But the reason why there was quite a delay is because for 40 minutes, for some reason, when I came back, all the settings on my computer were just wrong. And I couldn't get, the mic and access to work. And I went back with the settings back and forth. So I kept delaying it, trying to get it to work. But that was the device where I had all the information and the material for today. So I said, okay, well, I'm not going to have the regular show. I'm just going to come on and, say my apologies and just say, okay, well, it's yeah. So Oni was here earlier, which I do appreciate, even though today he was just being a yeah. But so I said, well, do you want us to continue, or do we just want to postpone? And Oni said continue. So we did continue, and then so the topic was completely off. It was supposed to be about yeah. Anyway, sorry, that's the long story of it. It was not. It was just a random thing. It didn't pan out as I wanted, but I will sort it out by next week. Yes.
Yeah, no, I just missed I missed the first minute or so when Gas came on. I was there
Oh,
at the beginning of the show, but so when that first minute when Gas came on, I missed it, and then when I came back, it was this conversation about elitism, basically,
okay.
Africa.
Well, I think let me see where the train of thought went with that one. So initially, it was supposed to be the fear that both the fear that Europeans have for us, all this stuff that they imagine we're capable of doing, and then, why do they hate and fear us so much, And the other part of it was, why do we fear and hate ourselves so much? We fear our traditions, our culture, who we are, who we were, and we're so quick to embrace the very opposite of that which we are. So that was the whole fear, their
Uh,
fear of, hmm?
I said, I see. Yeah, Gas is about the hut life, and
I don't, I don't know
and
exactly. Hilarious.
we do need to have space for that, but like as we've discussed several times on Shoot the Breeze, man, like we don't want to be in a situation again. We've been completely hut life, and then we had to deal with this savage who came over, right? So we don't want to go through that again. And the point that you were making to him, which I agree with, is that if folks don't know what's really going down, it's your job to teach them. We talk about the public school system or the public food system, like Oni would say. Um, a lot of people who are in it, a lot of the parents of children who are in it, they don't understand the damage that it creates. They don't understand its purpose, especially for our folks. So if you were able to make it through it, make it out of it, and you have an understanding, it is your duty to go back and address it with your folks. Should there be two-way, yeah, hashtag hut life, right? Should there be two-way communication? Sure. I'm not saying, because that was one of the things I used to think about as a kid, as a younger man anyway, reading Gavian and others who use talking points like we have to go back to Africa and civilize the uncivilized. I'm like, but dude, what do you mean you're going to civilize the uncivilized? Like how, what I mean? Like how did you come to call those people uncivilized? So I have a disdain for that kind of rhetoric, but I do understand that a lot of folks don't know what's up. You're going to have to go in there and be the example. You're going to have to go in there and kind of let them know what's up and work towards, towards something that's favorable for both point of views, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, as much as there is a point to be made that we have to be sympathetic or empathetic, as my internet says, to the people that we claim to be speaking for. But we're not coming with the idea that, we're better or we know what is good for them. It's from the whole idea that we know what is not good, what is out there. And some people may not have the full experience that we have. That's why even with the with the FBA, as much as they speak all that anti this or that and all that, but I can understand people wanting the experience to be acknowledged, to be respected, to be define who they are. And for us as Africans, we really didn't understand this whole slavery aspect of um, that war. We experienced colonization, which is also a different aspect, and other people also need to understand how that affected us as people. That it was a quieter, more gentle form of being taken over, but it was still being taken over nonetheless. So it's this understanding that I think people who are on the borders of things need to create that bridge of understanding, where you tell the people who still have that mentality that it's good to be who you are, it's good to be yourself, you don't need to be like somebody else. And I'm not in a better position than you because I went far. I just went far and I saw more, and I'll share with you my experiences, but I'll also listen to you. For me, I respect the people who are in the countryside. I respect the people who still live the life that my great great grandmother lived, where they still, you know, keep as much of their culture as they can. When I go back, it's not just to go and lord it over people. I really do enjoy going back to the countryside and knowing and being part of that I don't know, rustic, that simple, that just wonderful life. It reminds you of what life was before all this stuff happened, before we were violently taken in and taken out of ourselves. So I respect and unfortunately English also just gives it these horrible sounding names. There is no good word for that kind of life. It all sounds so backwards and primitive and all that, and there is no English word for it that really captures that aspect of being in touch with nature and who you are. It's not simplicity, it's not ignorance, it's not stupidity, it's not all this. You really do understand how much knowledge people had, and what is tragic about it is how humble they were. There's old women in the village who know more than, I don't know, 1,000 different kinds of herbs and flowers and trees, and they know how to cure different kinds of diseases, and you just see them walking down the market. They're just regular people, but they don't get the accolades and the praise, and they don't get books and documentaries and films made about them. They're just regular people. So I don't know, it's not from a place of arrogance and feeling better. It's more from a place where I don't want them to envy me. I want them to be happy with who they are. Yeah.
Yeah, the forecast says right. I don't know what y'all meant about primitive, but that's why I came in at. Yeah, that's the conversation that a lot of people kind of have, and Tanzan said it. You don't have the best words to describe it, but yeah, it's basically our traditional way of living before the European encounter, right? Before European encounter, before the Ma'afa, before we kind of fell behind in our own development as they progressed in theirs. Like, do you want to be able to just have that life in a world that's industrialized and more importantly weaponized? You know what I mean? Around you, you're just a sitting duck. As you said in the description of this episode, "Fair of the Duck," right? You're just a sitting duck, and that's what we don't want to have. We don't want to repeat that shit again. You know what I mean? So, but
Yeah.
I wanna thank you for allowing me to come on.
No, thank you. Yeah. Wow, it's sometimes things turn out chaotically, but they end up orderly. So I am happy. My prayers to the ancestors was answered today. I almost didn't even go on today. I was so frustrated, and I got the patient that I asked for. So I'm grateful to you, to everybody who was here, even to Oni.
Ah, boy.
Did you see that side swamp?
Yeah, I saw it. I saw it. Yeah, shout out to Mr. Untouchable too, man.
Oh yes. Okay, let me see if you can say Bwana Haguziki.
Yeah, Buena Haguziki, yes.
Oh,
I
okay.
can I can say it, it's just that I'm not used to saying it. So that's
Okay.
why you don't hear me saying it. But yeah, shout out to him as well. He came on earlier and I think he he stood tall there. I couldn't get on earlier, but Mr. Another Bahamian came in and saved the day. So shout out to him and everyone in the chat too. I see Forecast is dropping some comments. He said it's primitive because they weren't watching football on TV. He said I may be wrong, but with Gasdemup, I agree. That's what I'm saying about slippery slope, but I disagree about primitive black people. Create many things. The issue is controlling it. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not completely against a simpler life. Um, you know, I'm not against a simpler life, but I am against a completely simple life. Because we've seen what that brings, right? We've seen what, you need to have some power, you need to have some military might and stuff like that. Once you have that, if you want to use Gaston's favorite line, if you want to just sit back eating your pounded yam and a goosey soup, that's fine. But you make sure that nobody again could cross that threshold and enslave your ass again with your pounded yam and a goosey soup. That's what we have to protect against. So that's my only thing about what you and Gas was talking about earlier. We definitely don't want to come across as assholes, elitist, who are coming and finger wagging and preaching down. Now we have to go there and have a discourse, a
Yes.
back and forth conversation, and we got to show them too. That's the thing, because like you said, when you were in Kenya, there's a lot of things you weren't aware of, right? Us in the Caribbean, because we're in this hemisphere, we kind of know what's up, and even certain things we still had to learn when we came up here. But our folks who are back in the continent might think it's sweet when it comes to these different types of people, and we're gonna have to be able. We're gonna have to go back with evidence and show them, look, this is what these folks do, and you might want to, keep your simplistic lifestyle going, but let's put in the work to make sure that we can protect that simplistic lifestyle, that hot life, as a lot of people call it.
Yes, indeed. At first, I was hearing you say the hot life. So I was like, hot life. And then now I know, hot life. But
Yeah, it's not the tropical conditions life. It's the living conditions life, the hot life, right?
yes.
Yeah, so that's what it is, So again, thank you for your time. I don't want to
Thank you.
extend your time too long.
No.
Talk.
It's been great. I didn't do the show that I wanted to do, but it still turned out to be a great one. So I thank you and everybody who joined, and I thank you all for being patient. I don't like to say to bring less by my best, and so I thank you for your patience and for hashtag Heart Life. Thank you, Kokou, and it's been an honor and a pleasure. Okay, well, that was wonderful and great. Slippery slope. Yes. So thank you everyone who managed to stay on. Thank you Yes, the very fast, the very fast. Yes, I have returned. Unfortunately, not with the fanfare that I had wanted to, but you know, sometimes it's still okay. So I thank you, Kokou, for joining us, Oni, at the Pro Black Perspective Sundays on at it's 5 o'clock, it's 8 o'clock, 9, 10, 11, so 11 o'clock for the Eastern. Uh, who else was here? Of course, Bwana Haguziki. Thank you for joining us. Our matron at the learning curve. Thank you for Karibu Sana. Fear is born out of ignorance and expresses itself as control, violence, or both. Oh, please do join us next week because all of this, that's what we're going to talk about today. Both ignorance, control, and violence. That encompassed everything that we're going to talk about today if technology had not let me down. But Matron, you seem to be on better terms with technology than me. Today I was defeated. Yes. Oh, okay. That was an earlier comment. So, and we did have Bobby E. Wright earlier. Karibu, karibu. And the word for the day today was Sema. That's to say. Nisema is I say. And we said next week we're going to be here at the same time. So yeah, all right. And Brother Bakari was here as well. I wish he had joined and come to bat, but that's okay. Jose was here for a quick second, and I guess Senegal got him, but we still appreciate him showing up. Okay, so that is it for today. I am grateful. Yes, Jenga is to build. So you say to build. All right, let us build. Next week we will have the intended topic which was fear of the dark, fear of death, fear of the end, examining both their fear of us and our fear of them and of ourselves, mostly ourselves. The reason why we are unable to move forward because we are stuck in fear. The whole fight or flee. Those either we fight or we flee, we are still acting out of fear. And when you act out of fear, you act emotionally, which sometimes not logically. Sometimes you act against your own interest. Fear can be a good thing, but if taken to the extreme or if manipulated by certain, cultish thinking people, then it can be, a danger. And it's something that even us, we have employed that on ourselves. There have been some of our people who have employed our own people's fears against ourselves. So yes, that is wow. Okay, Oni. Wow. I sense a sliver of evil in you. and you can't be talking in the bleachers. You can't be talking in the audience, talking all this stuff. At least Bwana Haguziki came on. What did you do? Just throwing insults from the back end, man. Yeah, if you had come on up, then I would have respected you more. But today, nope, I'm not taking it. And Asante to you too. Okay, so thank you. We'll close out with gratitude to our ancestors for the time that we spent together, for the insight, the enlightenment, and the humor. Yes, and today's especially for the patience. I have been patient with the frustration with technology, and I have been patient with the tribulations of Mr. Onita Set Pro Black Perspective. All right. Thank you all. Asante sana. And we'll see you on the next one. So, kwaheri means go with blessings. Kwaheri.